In this video, we are doing the middle of the spider wrap. So if you missed how to set up the spider wrap on Decorate It, setting up a spider wrap, you will have the link right here. And you can see where I got all the measurements, how I did the spacing, what I did for the shading, etc. for this entire wrap. This particular video is just so that people can watch the wrap grow in real time, well, in sped up time. The first few passes of this, I was showing in slow motion how the wrap grows, which is basically a box out for everything. The spider itself, which is white, is a box out, and the background is a box out, which means we're making a square around everything the entire time. I wanted people to be able to watch the pattern grow in case they were interested, and the closing of the wrap is on a different episode for Decorate It, which is linked here. So since this took about an hour and a half, a little over, there was a lot of very slow time, and I wanted to speed up the entire process so that you guys wouldn't get bored. And even with speeding it up as much as I could, we're still looking at a 42-minute video. So I will be pointing out a few little tidbits here and there. I'm not going to continue to keep talking through the entire thing because it's just wrapping threads at this point in time. And for me personally, my goal is to get as many threads on there as possible before I have to pack. But I am at the stage where I am putting 6 threads down for the background here, and I'm going to use my thumbnail to pack all of that together just to help me keep it straight and keep everything nice and clean and keep me from changing the tension angle because threads are getting too spread out from where they should originally be. So 90% of the time the background's always going to get packed with my thumbnails. It's just my favorite way to pack multiple bands of threads. And that's just what has easily worked for me, and I can do it quickly and efficiently. When it comes to doing detail work like manipulating the seam or working with the spider, I get my packing tool. And in this situation, I'm trying to pack the white threads together and push the red background threads away from the white so I have more room to lay it down. If you accidentally cross over the white threads on the background, it gets really hard to get them to cinch up because they're crossed. Sometimes you can get them to come loose and like flip over the other one when you get your tool in there, but it's just better just to make the room and keep it away from each other to begin with than it is to try to fix it whenever you see it later. But most of the time when I'm using the packing tool, it's going to be manipulating the seam, which is moving the seam up or down to straighten it or to cinch up the spider really nice and tight. So we're starting with pass 7 here and starting with the spider. I did forget to film me doing the spider box out on pass 6, which is why it started with the background. But for the rest of it, everything is here. And enjoy the music as I will come back on with little tidbits here and there whenever it's pertinent. But for the most part, we're just watching a wrap take shape in sped up motion. You'll notice throughout this video that there are times where I don't pack the spider, but I do pack the background. And the reason being is there's only one thread going down each time. But it's very, very important to keep the spider as nice and tight as possible, especially with white thread, because we don't want it to bleed. And part of a lot of people's problems with the spider is getting those arms to really cinch up really nice and tight. And it is all because you're not following the entire line that the thread is going down. So you'll notice that I'm packing basically in the order that I wrap. So I'm going down the entire side there and I'm cinching up all the cross points, all the sides, and making sure everything's nice and tight. And you can watch those arms come together and get really close. That's the trick to packing the spiders, is really pay attention to those threads, in this case the white threads going through there, and cinching them up and making sure that they do stay nice and tight, and making sure that you don't have any crossovers from the background accidentally getting over into the white thread or whatever color you're deciding to use. That's the trick to keeping spiders nice and tight, making sure you follow the entire line and really cinch it up. And right here what I'm trying to do is pull the background out away from the spider a little bit, just to kind of make some more room. Moving it out away from it is going to be, you'll notice later on in the video I'll start to pack everything in to tighten it up. Wouldn't necessarily had to have done that moving it out here, but I have a tendency to move the threads out and then push them back in because I can keep everything nice and tight, and that's just me personally. If you don't want to do the little bit of extra work that and obviously creates, then don't push them out. But when I'm trying to keep my wraps really nice and straight and really clean and stuff, moving it out just a tiny bit, and we're talking about not even a millimeter, just moving it out a little bit for the next thread to be able to go down, actually has helped me keep everything nice and clean overall. That's just me personally. Take it or leave it, but that's been one of those tricks that I have done over the years and has worked out really nice for me. Like I was saying earlier, the trick with this is really to keep the spider nice and tight. And when I'm opening up space here, you can see that I'm basically just making room for one more thread. I don't want to push it out too far, but I also don't want to overlap. And those tiny white gaps that you're seeing pop up in the red, that's okay. And I'm not really paying too much attention to it because that is a straightening thing and a packing everything in kind of thing. So some places you can see it's nice and tight, but going across those arms, if you see where there's little gaps where your background's poking through, it means that your threads aren't packed as tight as they need to be. And once I get the spider cleaned up, I think it's later on in the video, I'm actually going to show you how to fix that, and it's really just straightening everything out. But at this point, I just want to make sure that the spider is staying true to the axis line and that the spider is staying nice and tight and having just enough room for one more thread to go down in there. So now we're at past 12, so we're going to frame the spider and then do 12 threads for the background. I stopped here to pack. I'm not done with all 12 threads. I think maybe I've got like 6 down at this point, but I was running out of room and I just wanted to stop and pack and make room for the other ones before I moved on to the rest of the pass. This was the last pass that I was adding a white thread to the outside of the spider. I will frame it later on in the close. However, you can see where I am starting to pack all those threads in and those white gaps are starting to close. basically what I'm doing is I'm cinching the threads down. So I am going along that line and I'm pushing everything down, and I'm not caring if that line goes below that straight axis line I have marked on there, the 0. What I'm doing is I'm tightening everything up. And as I work around the entire box, I work on one side and I come back to the other, and it will straighten everything up. And this is what I mean about packing in. Okay, so I'm taking all that extra room, because I don't know if you guys know this, but when you're doing your wraps, you can pack it and it be what you think is closed, but you can see how much room I'm able to add to the background by just cinching this stuff down. And one, this is going to keep, it'll keep the white from bleeding, really, because I kept everything super nice and tight. And two, this is opening up more space for me to actually close that. And the other thing is it's going to fix all those little white gaps that are poking through on the sides. Now, some of them are still going to be visible. I'll have to go around this and work it a few different times, but it's a lot easier to do the entire line. Like you can see, I'm going from the side that's showing the outside threads, and then I'm working on the seams. And even as I straighten it and go to push this side up, I'm still not too stressed about it being on the straight axis. If it falls into place, great. And I'll use my tool to kind of drag it out to kind of spread them out a little bit naturally. But I'm not going to be overly focused on straightening the seams. I'm just focused on packing it nice and tight and making sure everything is cinched up. So that's this entire process. We're going to go around the box, all 4 sides, the entire way up and down the blank. And if your tension is good, this is where a lot of people have problems, is that they can't move threads because they're too tight. And they're busting threads trying to move them. And as you watch me, a lot of people have said, well, you wrap really loose. Well, I'm really not wrapping loose. I'm wrapping, I don't really know. It's hard to describe it. Like, it's tight, but I'm able to manipulate the threads. So it's not like guide wrap tight, but it's like just a little bit under it, I guess is what you would call it. But either way, I have found a tension that I can maneuver all the threads around at any point in time. Even when the wrap is closed, I can go back and fix things, even the very beginning threads. And that's the kind of tension that you need to work with. It needs to be, I always call it the baby bear tension. You know, it needs to be right for you. Some people are going to wrap a little bit tighter, some people are going to wrap a little bit looser, but you don't want it to be too loose and you don't want it to be too tight. And that's the whole practice part of decorative wraps, is you got to figure out your tension so that you can do this kind of packing and can get it to straighten up and can get it to cinch up and can get all of those little discrepancies where those white gaps are showing to go away, and, you know, create nice, clean, tight looking wraps. Now, the other thing a lot of people get stressed about is that there's one side, we all have one side that we don't have as much leverage, and my side is this side coming down. I don't have as much leverage pulling the thread down towards my lap as I do any of the other 3 sides. You could alleviate that and like flip the rod around if you're working on it, but I don't like to do that. I just deal with that side and just know when I'm placing those threads, they need to be closer than what the other ones are. But over time, you get used to working with your bad side, if you will, your weak side, and you just make it work. But you can see as we're getting around this box that everything's starting to cinch up nice and tight, and you want to stop about halfway and do this and make sure everything's good. I obviously am working on a very large PVC. I think it's, I can't remember if it's 1/2 inch or 3/4, but either way, it's 12 passes of a spider. On a blank of this size, it'd be something of a surf rod or shark rod, something big. So if you're doing a standard spider, you probably have like a 7 or 8 passes and not 12 like I have. And you would probably stop around past 5 to do what I'm doing here, with making sure that everything's nice and tight and making sure that it's all clean and everything's ready to go. Oh, and a few times during this, my hair will make an appearance, so it's a special guest tonight. Another thing I wanted to point out is that packing out is also an option. So you can see here I've got some pretty big gaps I'm trying to get closed, and I'm going to fuss over it for a few seconds here. well, probably more like a couple minutes. So as I'm packing it in, I'm noticing that it's not helping it, it's distorting it. So I'm resorting to moving the threads out by kind of rubbing the tool across it, and also trying to tighten down that seam that's over there. Now this particular one is coming off of the tape anchor, so it's not quite at the right angle, which is causing some of that drama. But packing out is also an option, as long as you don't open up a gap. Like, we do not want a gap to be on our closed wraps, right? We don't want to be able to see through to the blank. We want to be able to make sure that it's nice and tight. So if you see those gaps, and as you're tightening everything together and they're not going away, you may have to kind of push them out a little bit. And you can see right there as I did it that it basically disappeared. So now this is basically the second go round of me making sure everything's nice and tight, and I will pay more attention to making sure everything's nice and straight, because at this point I'm about halfway, because it's a lot of, well, I'm a little over halfway at this point, but I still have a pretty good chunk of the background to close before I go to the actual close in the podcast episode. But packing out is an option. Just don't pack out so far that you open up a gap. And in case anybody was ever wondering what was running through my head while I'm always doing this stuff, is I'm literally telling myself to just keep packing, just keep packing. What do? We pack, pack, pack. I always joke around with people that we call them decorative wraps, but really should call them decorative packs, because we spend more time packing than we do wrapping, but that's beside the point. Now that we've got them about 90% tight and some of those white gaps are starting to disappear, this one's still giving me a little bit of trouble because it's just not coming off the tape anchor that great. I'm still going to continue to try to keep tightening that one up because it's just bugging me, but we're getting closer to what it should look like. Another thing is coming off of your tape anchors, if you don't get it quite at the right angle, it's going to cause dramas. But you can see I've got almost 90% of that done, so I can pretty much burnish that out and it should be fine. The one over to the right side of the screen is a terrible placement as far as coming off the tape anchor, and that's okay. But you always try to make sure that you can get any pattern that you can see fixed. So you see how this one is right there where the turnaround is. I don't have a tape anchor on that side because I just wrap over it. So I'm fighting a false pattern to try to straighten it. So in a normal wrap, you would lose that pattern regardless. So just try to pay attention to your angles when you're coming off of your tape anchor so you don't lose more of your wrap than you intended to. Now at this point we are doing the close, and usually I usually hold my spools, but This particular one was driving me nuts, so I just started holding the thread and just dragging the spool around until I got it sorted. But 90% of the time, I'm holding the thread spool in my hand so I can keep track of the tension. And sometimes when the thread starts to come off of those spools, because they are the Madeira spools and they're skinnier at the top, I am usually in the middle of a pass, so I just drop the spool and just do it till a thread until I can get it fixed. And we're going to basically fill this in until I get about 5 to 6 passes to the close. The final close will be in that episode of Decorate It. Hey, Mary's hair, how are you doing? So when I'm filming this camera is above me, and as it gets to the point where I have to get closer and closer to it, my hair always manages to get in the shot, and I always try so hard to not get it in the shot because it always looks like a bird's nest. Like, it looks terrible, and I hate that, but it's beside the point. Back to packing. So the background definitely has grown a lot during this entire video because we've put down a massive amount of threads, and you can start to see where my shading is starting to come through because the darker threads are now getting put into play. And the idea was to shade from the lightest red to black for this background to kind of give it this shimmering effect. Now, as I said, we are not going to see this wrap finished in this video. It's not going to close in this video. This is just for you to be able to watch what happens in the middle of it. The closing of it is in Closing the Wrap podcast, which if you haven't checked it out, by all means, please come and check it out, because I give you a lot of tidbits on how to get the wraps to close easier, how to keep them from getting knots on them, and I come back and I frame around the outside of the spider with a couple different options, one that Wes suggested and one that I already had in my head, just to give it a little bit of spunk and basically connect the entire pattern. So even though this was just a very long video of me wrapping, hopefully some of the information that I shared and some of the stuff that you're watching me do can help you with your wraps. I also have a spider wrap course on threadcentral.net if you need a more detailed how to set it up, explaining it all in broken down very shorter segments so that it's easier to digest instead of watching big long versions of it. It is there, and it's a course that once you purchase it, you have access to it to life, and you can reference it as many times as you want to. It doesn't expire or anything of that nature, and it really just goes through a different look of a spider. It's another spider, but it's got different colors for it. But hopefully you learned a couple things. Maybe you picked up a few tricks, and hopefully the spider will be one of your next wraps that you try. I personally love spiders. They're one of my favorite patterns to wrap because they go pretty quick. They're easy to pack. There's not a whole lot of complications with them other than whenever I try to do a lot of different colors into the background, and then I have to do a little bit of math, but for the most part they're probably one of the easier wraps. For most people that are beginning into wraps, I always suggest to do chevrons and diamonds and snowflakes and things of that nature. But the spider is also another one that I recommend for beginners as well. It's the first introduction to a +1 background. And if you can master the spider, then you're going to be able to do basically any wrap that is out there, because the introduction of the +1 gives you a lot of different techniques for a lot of other different patterns that have these little arms that grow or curves that are showing up. So basically, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed yourself. Don't forget to see how I close this wrap on Decorate It, the podcast, Closing the Spider Wrap, so that I can give you all the information on how I did this and why I did it the way I did it and what makes it a little bit easier to close your wraps. Thanks for watching. Y'all have a great day.